Everyone tells you to do X, Y, and Z for perfect cucumbers, but what if all that advice is actually killing your plants? Today, we're going to debunk the biggest myths surrounding cucumber care and reveal the true, often overlooked reason why your leaves are failing. Prepare to have your mind blown and your garden transformed as we expose the real culprit. Picture this. You've followed every piece of advice you could find. You've watered religiously, added expensive fertilizers, and checked for pests daily. Yet there you stand, staring at cucumber plants with yellowing, wilting, or completely dead leaves, wondering where you went wrong. Sound familiar? You're not alone in this frustration, and more importantly, you're not failing as a gardener. The truth is, most gardeners are chasing symptoms rather than addressing the root cause, literally. While you've been focused on what you can see above ground, the real battle for your cucumber's survival has been happening inches below the soil surface, in a zone that receives little attention but determines everything about your plant's health. This hidden battlefield is where your cucumber's fate is sealed long before those telltale leaf symptoms appear. What we're about to uncover will challenge everything you think you know about cucumber care. The real reason your leaves are failing isn't what the gardening books tell you, and it's certainly not what most YouTube channels are addressing. It's something far more fundamental yet surprisingly simple to fix once you understand what's really happening. Let's start by clearing the air about what everyone thinks is killing their cucumber plants. Overwatering and underwatering top the list of usual suspects, followed closely by nutrient deficiencies and pest infestations. While these can certainly stress your plants, they're usually secondary problems that stem from a deeper issue that nobody's talking about. Consider the classic scenario. Your cucumber leaves start yellowing from the bottom up. The internet immediately points to nitrogen deficiency, so you rush to add fertilizer. When that doesn't work, you adjust your watering schedule. Still no improvement? Time to inspect for spider mites or cucumber beetles? This cycle of misdiagnosis can go on for weeks while your plants continue to decline, because you're treating symptoms while the real problem remains untouched. Here's what most gardeners don't realize. Even perfect watering, ideal nutrition, and pest-free conditions won't save your cucumbers if they're struggling with the one thing that makes all other care efforts meaningless. Those yellowing leaves, stunted growth, and poor fruit production aren't necessarily signs of the problems you've been trained to look for. They're distress signals from a plant that's slowly suffocating, unable to access the very resources you're trying so hard to provide. The visual symptoms that send us into a panic, wilting despite moist soil, pale leaves despite rich fertilizer, or sudden plant collapse during what should be peak growing season, are all pointing to the same underlying issue. But because this problem develops silently and gradually, it's often overlooked until the damage is severe and sometimes irreversible. Here's the truth that will revolutionize your cucumber growing. The number one killer of cucumber leaves is compacted soil and poor drainage in the root zone. This isn't just about having heavy soil, it's about creating an environment where your cucumber roots literally cannot function, no matter how perfect your care routine appears to be. When soil becomes compacted, even just a little bit, it creates a cascade of problems that show up as leaf failure. Compacted soil restricts oxygen flow to the roots, and cucumber plants are especially sensitive to this since they have pretty shallow, sprawling root systems that really need constant access to air. Without enough oxygen, roots actually start to shut down their nutrient uptake mechanisms, which leads to what looks like nutrient deficiency but is, in reality, nutrient lockout. The tricky thing about this problem is how gradually it develops. Your soil doesn't get compacted all at once. It happens over time through repeated watering, foot traffic, and just the natural settling that goes on in garden beds. Meanwhile, your cucumber plants initially seem fine because their surface roots can still function. But as the growing season progresses and the plants need to develop deeper, more extensive root systems to support fruit production, they hit this impermeable barrier and, honestly, begin to fail. Poor drainage compounds this issue exponentially. Even if your soil isn't severely compacted, inadequate drainage creates waterlogged conditions that are just as deadly to cucumber roots. These plants evolved in well-draining soils, and when water sits around their roots for extended periods, it displaces the oxygen they desperately need. The result? Root rot, nutrient lockout, and, well, the classic symptoms of leaf failure that send gardeners scrambling for the wrong solutions. What makes this particularly frustrating is that surface soil can appear perfectly fine while the root zone suffers. You might stick your finger into the top few inches and find ideal moisture conditions, never suspecting that just a few inches deeper, your cucumber roots are struggling in an oxygen-depleted environment that's slowly killing your plants. The solution to this hidden problem requires a fundamental shift in how you approach soil preparation and maintenance. Creating the optimal root zone environment isn't just about adding organic matter, it's about engineering a soil structure that maintains its integrity throughout the growing season while providing consistent oxygen flow and drainage. Before you plant, it's important to start by testing your soil's drainage. Dig a hole about 12 inches deep and fill it with water. If, after 24 hours, water still remains in the hole, you have a drainage problem that really needs to be addressed before any other care efforts will be effective. Honestly, this simple test tells you more about your future cucumber success than soil pH tests or nutrient analyses ever could. For existing garden beds, improving soil structure usually requires pretty aggressive intervention. Just working organic matter like compost into the top 8 to 10 inches isn't enough if there's a compacted layer beneath. You need to break up any hard pan or compacted zones that extend into the root zone, often requiring double digging or broad forking techniques that most casual gardeners skip. The secret to proper planting depth goes beyond following seed packet instructions. Cucumber seeds need to be planted in soil that's been loosened to at least 18 inches deep, even though the seeds themselves only go down an inch or two. This ensures that as roots develop and spread, they encounter consistently aerated soil rather than hitting barriers that force them to grow laterally in search of better conditions. Creating raised beds or mounded planting areas addresses this issue proactively by ensuring drainage and preventing compaction from the start. Even a modest 4-inch raised bed can make the difference between thriving cucumber plants and struggling ones, especially in areas with naturally heavy soils or poor drainage. Monitoring root zone conditions throughout the season requires attention to subtle signs that most gardeners miss. Healthy cucumber plants should show consistent, vigorous growth throughout their growing period. Any sudden slowing of growth, especially during ideal weather conditions, often indicates developing root zone problems before visible leaf symptoms appear. The power of preventative care really lies in recognizing the early warning signs of root zone distress before they ever show up as problems with the leaves. Regular soil assessment, honestly, becomes a cornerstone of successful cucumber growing. And this doesn't mean you need fancy or expensive soil tests, it just means periodically checking things like soil structure, drainage, and root health throughout the whole growing season. Understanding that healthy leaves are actually the result of healthy roots, well, that fundamentally changes how you approach every aspect of cucumber care. Your thriving cucumber plants await, and they're closer than you think. The difference between failure and abundant success often comes down to this single overlooked factor that we've just uncovered together. Don't let another growing season pass with struggling cucumber plants and disappointing harvests. Take action on what you've learned here, and, prepare to be amazed by the transformation in your garden. Your cucumbers are ready to thrive, now you know how to let them. Ready to revolutionize your cucumber growing and never face mysterious leaf failure again? Subscribe to Smart Garden for more myth-busting revelations that will, honestly, transform your entire approach to gardening. Share this guide with fellow gardeners who are tired of chasing symptoms instead of solving problems. Together, we're building a community of truly successful growers who understand what their plants really need.